Hello and welcome to Wireless Essentials Part 2. This lecture will focus mostly on intermodulation distortion, discuss what it is, and talk about solutions to avoid it. When you are working as a wireless coordinator or you are working with wireless audio gear, the first thing you got to do is assign all of your devices to their own unique frequencies. Technically, they each need a frequency range because most wireless devices are, at least in the pro audio world, use FM, and so therefore they span a little frequency range. So you have to carve out a little tiny bit of spectrum for each device. And when you're assigning frequencies, you first need to avoid TV, radio, and other RF signals, such as other mics and that sort of thing. And this is usually pretty easy to do. You can use a scanning feature on your receiver and avoid these existing frequencies. The next thing you need to do is avoid intermodulation distortion frequencies. And the difficulty here is that these frequencies may not exist until later when the different devices you turn on interact. And so we got to learn about this and talk about solutions to avoid it. So what is IMD? Intermodulation distortion, or IMD, is the creation of new frequencies related to the sum and difference of the frequencies contained in the input signals. So that's a pretty complicated sentence. What exactly is intermodulation distortion? Well, wireless devices can overload each other and generate distortion. Perhaps you'll get a transmitter too close to a receiver, it will overload it, and you'll distort the receiver. You can even get one transmitter too close to another transmitter, say two mics very close to each other. That can create intermodulation distortion and overload when the two mics interact. And this intermodulation distortion can cause the receiver to mute or spit out noise, dropouts or noise. And intermodulation distortion is interesting because it takes two input signals. In this case, in this drawing here in the upper right, you can see these two RF signals that are very close to each other in frequency. And when they interact, when they overload a device, they create new frequencies above and below the original two frequencies. These two frequencies and these newly created ones are called intermods. And mathematically, it's relatively simple. The first intermod, this one here that's higher, this is 2 times the frequency of 1 subtract frequency of 2. And the lower intermod is 2 times the frequency of 2 subtract frequency of 1. So that's the relationship going on here. And it's pretty simple to calculate when you have 2 frequencies. But once you get 3 frequencies, you can see on this lower plot here, there's a lot to calculate. And a lot of shows, a lot of entertainment events have a lot more than 3 wireless devices. In this RTA up here, this plot up here, in red, you can see the 9 original wireless microphone frequencies. And all this white stuff are intermods that are created from these red originals frequencies interacting with each other. So once you actually have more than a couple mics, you're really going to need to calculate the intermods, and you're going to need special software or some other computerized device to pull it off for you because the math is just too complicated to do longhand. Now, IMD is a funny thing because although it's there and prevalent and a problem in all our wireless devices, a lot of users aren't aware of this. And early in my career, I was certainly in the same position. I was using wireless audio devices. I was picking frequencies manually without knowing any better. And this was bad. And it doesn't work out because even though it's sound check, you might pick a frequency and it works, and you check all your mics and it works. It's not until showtime that the two singers get close to each other on a crazy duet and the mics get really close, and then you have a dropout, or there you have a loud noise or a zorch or a zip or a hiss or something, and it's totally embarrassing. So audio engineers, even though they don't really understand the math or the technology behind the creation of intermodulation distortion, you do need to know the solutions to avoid it. And in the next video, I will address that.